In today's lesson, we're going to graph standard form. Standard form is going to be ax plus by equals c. Remember when we found x and y intercepts before? We're going to use this method to graph when the x and y are on the same side of the equal sign. Remember, to find the x-intercept, we're going to ignore the y portion of your equation, solve the remaining one-step equation, and plot the x-intercept. To find the y-intercept, we'll ignore the x portion of the equation, keep the y, solve for that one-step equation, and plot the y-intercept. We'll, of course, connect the two dots to make a line for our problem. So again, I'm going to start by finding my x-intercept, which is going to go ahead and be keeping your 4x in the problem, ignoring the -6 that's with y, and setting it equal to the other side of 12. We divide each side by 4 to get x by itself, and that's when I get x equals 3, which is my x-intercept point. So on the x-axis, I plot a point of 3. For the y-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and see that I keep the y variable in my equation, -6y specifically, and I set that equal to the right side of 12. I divide each side by -6, and that comes out to be my answer of y equals -2. Plotting that point on my y-axis, and then we just connect with a nice straight line. For the next question, same idea. To find the x-intercept, I keep the x term. I need that letter to solve. I ignore the y term, and I just set it equal to the right side of my equation, which is -5. For this problem, that's it. No division needed. My x-intercept is -5. For the y-intercept, again, going to go ahead and keep the y of my equation and -5y specifically. Ignore the x on that side. And then we go ahead and set it equal to the right side of the equation, which is -5. Here I have to divide to get the y by itself by a -5 on each side, getting me my final answer of y equaling 1. That's my y-intercept. Place it on the y-axis, and I go ahead and connect to the x and y-intercept with a nice straight line. The next form we're going to graph is called point-slope form. We're going to label what it is because it's y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus an x sub 1 here. The y sub 1 is going to represent the y coordinate of your point from the problem here. We're going to go ahead and have m being the same thing that we had in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, which is the slope. Still the slope, just like that other format. And then we're going to have our x sub 1 be the x coordinate of our point. Now, note here, there's a little hint that we always remember opposites when writing down the values of our ordered pair. We're going to take a look at what that means, but think opposite. With point-slope form, you start at a given point instead of your y-intercept, and then you go ahead and use this method when you have parentheses in your equation. So for example number 1, we have the parentheses, so I know I'm going to use point-slope form. Slope is the number multiplied in front of my parentheses, which will be 2/3 for this problem. For the point, I pull the x coordinate of the point, which is going to go ahead and be the first value from what is next to my x in the equation. Now remember, like I said, you have to do the opposite, so that's why I'm going to pull a -4 for my x value of the point. Then I go ahead and pull the y value from being next to the y in the equation. It's a +1 shown in the equation, so I actually write the opposite of -1. I go ahead and plot this point, -1 for the y and -4 for the x. We go ahead and have that plotted there. Hopefully you plot the same point. From there, that point is when now I do a slope of 2/3. So that's up 2 to the right 3, and I can keep that pattern going. Or I can also do down 2 and left 3. Once I have as many points as possible, I go ahead and make a nice straight line. For the next problem, again, pull your slope in front of your parentheses. It's a negative, but remind yourself when you have a negative, it's really going to be a -1. I go ahead and pull the x value of my point from what's next to the x value in the equation. Remember, I see a -2, so that's really going to be a +2 when it comes to writing my point. Then I go ahead and have y plus 5, so that's what's next to y, which is that 5 here, but I see a 5. I have to write the opposite, which is going to be a -5 for the y coordinate. I plot that as a single point with an x value of 2 and a y value of -5 should be where I just plotted it. Doing a slope of -1, remember you can put any whole number over 1 to help you graph that slope of down 1 to the right 1. Or I can do the exact opposite, which is up 1 and to the left 1. I go ahead and make a nice straight line with all these points. And I'm going to try the next example. We go ahead and pull the slope that's in front of our x value here. So that's a -5/4. For the point, be careful here because there is not parentheses, but there would be between the -5/4 and x, and it would be a +0 in this case. Well, actually, because of the formula, it would be a -0, but 0 is not positive or negative. So we go ahead and pull that as the x coordinate of our point. For the y coordinate, I go ahead and see that I have y plus 6. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a -6 for this problem for the y value. Plot that point, which is just the y-intercept point. Plot it at 0, -6. Ends up being on the y-axis at -6. From here, I do a slope. I can't go down, so I have to go up 5. And because I went up, I do want to make it negative, so I would go to the left to make it a negative movement, a negative slope. Connect those two dots because that's all the dots we can plot, or all the points we can plot on the graph given. In Desmos example number 4, we want to select all the equations that best represent the graph. So I go ahead and try each one. What I'm looking for when I type in option 1 is that I have the same x and y intercepts that this graph on my paper has. So notice the x-axis is a -2 for the x-intercept and the y-intercept is -3. Look at our picture, it's backwards, so I cannot select that option. I go ahead and look at my second option on the paper, typing it in on Desmos. I see that this graph does have the x-axis with a -2 and the y-axis with a -3. So that is going to be my check mark here. Oops, check mark, not an arrow here. We go ahead and make sure to cancel out the first option. Now that I have the graph, I'm going to keep up that example and I'm going to try option number 3. Not the same line, so get rid of it. And then option 4, notice how it ends up overlapping with the previous line, which means they're the exact same, they are the equivalent. So I'll go ahead and check off number 4 as well. So the correct answers are option 2 and 4. So for Desmos example number 5, we want to select all the equations that have a y-intercept of 2. Again, going to put in each example and only check off the ones that have a y-intercept of 2. So when I try the first option, I want to check my y-axis, so that's the vertical one, to see if it passes through 0, 2, which is my y-intercept of 2. This first equation does, so I will go ahead and check it off. Looking at option number 2, notice on the y-axis it passes through at 9, not 2, so I cross that one off. Option number 3, looking at the y-axis, passes it at the intercept of 0, -4, which is not 2. So then I try the last option, passes through my graph at that y-intercept of 0, 2. So as you see out of my 4 options, I'm going to check off the first and the last.
Now we're going to look to convert standard form into slope intercept form. There's going to be two precise steps we follow here, so let's go ahead and write them. Step number 1 is we are going to add or subtract the x term here. So we will add or subtract the x term. And when I mean the x term, I mean the whole term with x, the number and x, so the coefficient and x, and we do it on both sides of the equal sign. Step number 2 is I will divide every term by the number next to the y, and that also will be known as the coefficient of y. Make sure at the end we simplify all fractions. Let's go ahead and do those steps. Step number 1, I'm going to do in the first box here to attach it to that step. I add or subtract the x term. Well, in this problem here, my x term is positive. So I want to do the opposite if I'm moving it to the other side of the equation, which is exactly what I need to do. So again, always do the opposite of your x term. We add it if it's negative, we subtract it if it's positive. We cancel out the x's on the left. What is left here is just 6y being brought down. And then over here on the other side, we cannot combine the like terms. So I'm always going to put the x term first and then the number. Why I do that is because of the slope intercept form up above here. As you see, the x comes before the number, so I want to just slide that one in right before the -36. From here, we have step number 2, which is going to go ahead and be dividing everything by the number next to y. Well, the number next to y is 6, so then I'm going to divide every single term by 6. Why I do that is because I want to get y by itself. That's my goal in the end. And these steps will get me to that goal because it's 6 times y. So to get the 6 away from y, I have to do the opposite, which is division. Simplify all the fractions. Well, 6 over 6 is 1y left. -12 over 6 is -2x, and -36 over 6 is a -6 when I divide all those in the calculator here. That's my final answer when I have y by itself, and again, the x term first, then the number, just like I circled above in green.
In the next example A, we're going to convert the equation from standard form to slope-intercept form by first drawing our line and then always subtracting over our x term with the number attached. So that is subtracting 6x on each side. It cancels out on the left and leaves you with a 9y. On the right side, I sneak that in with a nice arrow in front of my 9 to make it -6x plus 9. From here, I see that 9 is attached to y with multiplication. So to detach it, I do the opposite, which is division. And when I divide 9, I have to divide that to every term, the y term, the x term, and my number term. I cancel out 9 divided by 9. That's just 1 with y. And then I go ahead and see that I can simplify this fraction. -6 over 9, I can see that I can divide both the top and bottom by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to get a -2 up top and a 3 on the bottom to simplify that fraction. Keep it in front of x. Last step is I just do this division of 9 divided by 9, which is going to go ahead and be a +1. My final answer is y equals -2/3 x plus 1.
Last problem here again. Add or subtract the x. If it's positive, we'll be subtracting it -2x. What we do to one side, we must do to the other. We go ahead and have -7y equaling -2x minus 14. It's so important you sneak in that x in front of your number closest to the equal sign on that right side. I just sneak it right in there and write them separately. Negative 2x and negative 14. Those are my two terms. Write them separately. X closest to the equal sign. From here, we divide everything by negative 7, every single term here. That's always our second step. Whatever the number is next to y, we divide from every single term. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1y left. Negative 2 divided by negative 7 will get you a decimal, so leave it as a fraction. That's going to be a positive 2 over positive 7 written next to x here. It's important to note that when you're dividing two negatives, they turn into positives. So that's how I get a positive 2 over 7 instead of negative 2 over negative 7. Last but not least, negative 14 divided by negative 7. We just talked about how two negatives make it positive, and that's 2. You can check that in a calculator, but if the calculator gives you a decimal, leave it as a fraction in simplified form.
In the last part of our notes, we want to convert point-slope form into slope-intercept form. As a reminder, point-slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m parentheses x minus x sub 1. And slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Steps to get the goal of getting y by itself are going to be distributing the number, which is going to be represented as your slope, to the terms in the parentheses. After we simplify, we'll go ahead and add or subtract the number next to y on both sides of the equation. So let's go ahead and draw our line with the equal sign and distribute the negative 2/3, our slope, to both the x and the 6. What happens with the x is it's going to go ahead and just be that negative 2/3 in front of x. But now with our number of 6 here, I like to put it over 1. This way, I'm going to take the negative with the 2. I'm going to always bring my negative to the numerator. And I'm going to multiply that negative 2 by what's also in the numerator of my fraction I'm distributing into, which is 6. So negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Then I have 3 in the denominator, and so do I have 1. Since they're both in the bottom, I multiply. 3 times 1 is 3. From here, now that I have one number in the top of my fraction, 1 in the bottom, I go ahead and divide that down. Negative 12 divided by 3 is a negative 4. I bring down the y minus 8 because I didn't do anything with that yet. That's in step number 2. I also leave the negative 2/3 x in front of x as my slope. From here, I'm going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides. That's my step number 2. Because it was a negative 8, I have to do the opposite, which is plus 8. Cancels out to just a y on the left side. The 2/3 x stays, but now with the negative 4, I'm adding 8, and negative 4 plus 8 is 4. In the next example, same thing. I'm going to start by drawing my line with the equal sign. I have 1/4 as my slope in front of parentheses that will get multiplied to each term. Remember, the first term is just the slope of 1/4 with x. For the second term, the plus 4 I'm multiplying it with, I put that over 1. That way I multiply the numbers in the top of my fraction. 1 times 4 makes 4. And that way I multiply the numbers in the bottom of my fraction. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is positive 1. I leave it next to the 1/4 x. And on my left side, I just bring down the y plus 5. I didn't do anything with yet until step number 2. Now that I distributed and simplified, I'm going to go ahead and see that it's a positive 5. So I have to do the opposite, which is subtracting 5 from one side to the other. Cancels out on the left to just y. I keep the 1/4 x as is. I can only combine like terms, which are the two numbers of 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. Final answer is y equals 1/4 x minus 4,